Well, Randall back there was talking about how when you have a PhD in history, there really is no job for you. And I was pointing out, here you are, you're like at a college
I think this
talking
is the
about
first
stuff.
time that I've spoken to a college auditorium for a living wage, so.
Hello. Welcome.
So I want you to know that when Randall was a little boy and he dreamed of being at a college talking about history, here he is.
Thank you.
Please welcome our speakers, Rinella and Randall Williams.
One of the things that draws me to these parts of American history is the richness and abundance on the landscape that these individuals are encountering. It's whether it's Boone going through the Cumberland Gap and going into Kentucky, or it's, first rendezvous-based mountain men going into the Snake River Valley. They're finding these like places of tremendous abundance, and you always feel like, man, I wish I could be there to see that. There's going to be a thing that's going to happen if we don't play our cards right, is that as mundane as your own stories seem to be, you might land in a spot where your grandchildren or your children, in hearing your stories, they think, man, I wish I could have seen that, right? Recognizing that in some ways, you live right now in somebody else's good old days, right? And trying to take some steps to make it that when they look back on it, their life isn't perhaps the wildlife they experience and the places they get to go are perhaps not as different as what we experience now, which comes down to stemming the loss, right? And trying to protect the environments and the habitats where we live, and trying to a little bit arrest this tendency in American history to have it be that every generation looks back and wishes they had it a little bit more like the one before, and get to a place where maybe your kids or grandkids would be telling you stories and you thinking like, man, you live in the good old days, right? Getting to that appreciation point is only going to come by looking at the way things were and asking yourselves how they got to the way they are now.
This is the oldest historic archaeological assemblage in Wyoming. It's from Fort Bonneville, 1832, but they probably used it few years after that during some rendezvous in the area up there by Pinedale.
This is the largest mountain man associated collection found in Wyoming. And you were telling me earlier about, it makes sense intuitively, but they're living this nomadic existence, and so whatever small amount of stuff they're leaving behind, it's just scattered.
Yeah, and the only reason we have this is because they built a fort. It's really the only archaeology that's been done there, period. Nobody's really been back there since.
What's sitting there now?
So right now, State Parks owns it, and they co-manage it with the Sublette County Historical Society. Okay. Do you all recognize any items?
Well, on the way up here, we were just talking about straightening out bent nails.
Yeah, I'd go with nails. Potentially like a awl or...
So the interesting thing about the nails to me, I'm pretty sure Bonneville took wagons out west. It's the account I wrote. Mm-hmm. And so they're probably a little bit more well-equipped than some folks before them.
Yeah.
So they might have come out with, buckets full of nails or just disassembled wagons and got some of these out.
Yeah.
But the other cool thing is that there's forged nails, which implies, and this panned out in the excavations, they had a forge there for sure, where they were repairing stuff. And
so they had their own rig up like that.
Yeah.
Huh. John Colter and Potts are down trapping beavers, and they hear hoofbeats. Potts, which one of them? One of them thinks, it's a herd of buffalo. We don't need to hide. It's just buffalo running. But it's not. It's Blackfeet on horseback. So when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. In their case,
or buffalo.
Think horses, not buffalo. They get caught. They tell them they're in a canoe. The Blackfeet tell Potts and Colter they want them to come ashore. Potts maybe panics, but he shoots a Blackfeet man. They fill Potts full of arrows. They drag his body up. They bring Colter up on the bank. They disembowel Potts, cut his body all up, smear Colter with Potts' innards, and then they make a deal with him. They tell him, we're going to give you a running head start. Takes off, and through hard-to-believe athleticism, he escapes. And then he makes his way naked from Three Forks all the way to the mouth of the Bighorn, where the Bighorn flows in to the Yellowstone River. So many people, raise your hand if you know Colter's Run, the story of Colter's Run, right? Everybody raises their hand. You wind up with this interesting question. How do you know what you know? Why do you know that, and who told who what for real? Like, where did that story actually really come from?
Metal like this, probably like this piece right here, Steve, that you picked up initially. Probably all just pieces of scrap metal off of barrels. And I think there's great evidence there that people are stamping these barrel hoops out into trade points.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't necessarily complete them at the fort, but if you could trade this kind of stuff into the tribe, along with a chisel and a file, you could trade those into Indian tribes, Indian communities, and they'd have everything they need to make this stuff right here. Take some of this scrap metal and making use of it.
I wonder if these were ditched because somehow the hafting point broke off.
It's either that or this is like the remnants of stamping one out, you know, like the little tabs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It could be either way.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were trapping too. This is like really the only evidence from this assemblage that we have of that. This is chain link from beaver traps.
That might have been the ring on the end.
Oh, could have been.
The chain ring.
Like on a float pole.
Yeah. Just the end of the chain. Just it got pried open, lost its spring. I don't know.
We talk about how many mountain men there were. We get into this thing where we have to try to define what a mountain man is. But it brings up this broader question that we're getting into with this series, which is MeatEater's American History, where we're looking at American history through the lens of market hunters, okay? So market hunters being people that would go out on the landscape and they would extract natural resources in the form of meat, grease, furs, leather. Big area of our focus is looking at, like, what was the market? Why did the market exist? What things needed to occur to create this little spasm of activity? And this spasm we're talking about tonight is the mountain man era. And then what came after it?
I think one of the trapper accounts you guys cite talks about the Shoshone making their food in stone bowls. Mm-hmm. These are the stone bowls. They're carved out of soapstone.
Oh, no kidding, really?
So it looks like the Shoshone were hammering that stuff hard and developed this stone bowl technology. It's really late, though. It's interesting to think that it might be a mimic of like a trade kettle or something.
Yeah. Reverse engineering.
Basically, yeah. We've never found one in a site, say, older than like 1700 or so.
Huh.
Wow.
They're super cool, though. It's just a really neat piece of material culture. They're basically only found in the Shoshone heartland.
Yeah, we're talking about there's a famous mountain man who left this meticulous journal. It's probably one of the best journals that exists. His name is Osborne Russell, and he describes an encounter with some high country sheep hunters. And he's talking about what they have of trade items, which was not much, a couple pieces of metal. And he said they had a stone pot. And I think they had 2 partial guns with nothing to make them go bang.
Yeah, just old trade rifles.
That one's incredible, man.
The Long Hunters were commercial deerskin hunters who operated essentially across the Appalachian Mountains from the original 13 colonies, south of the Ohio River, and
In the first Far West.
in the first Far West. And their guys, Daniel Boone is the most familiar name from the Long Hunter era, but it's a pretty small cohort, but they're farmers living in western Virginia and western North Carolina, and they have very small farms. that produce, essentially they're consuming 90% of the crops they produce, so they only have 10% or so to go to market. They're not producing a surplus. They don't have ready access to cash. But the one thing that they can produce to make a cash income to buy the things they need is they can sell deer skins. Everyone was looking west, right? And especially in the 1830s and 1840s, as Manifest Destiny really grips the American imagination. A lot of them go on then to play, like Jim Bridger. I mean, he's sort of the mountain man above all, but
Yeah, I use the term that I say he develops kind of this like Forrest Gumpian ability to be everywhere all at once later in life.
yeah. So Jim Bridger, you know, he's a mountain man, and then he becomes a guide for settlers coming west. Like in the 1840s, you have all of these crazy developments, right? Like you have the Oregon Trail gets underway, and all of a sudden there are more people heading west in a single year than there were mountain men throughout the whole of the mountain man era. They're all looking to the mountain men as sort of their origin story. Jim Bridger also accompanies the party that goes to plot out the course that would become the Transcontinental Railroad. And so like because of what came after them in some ways, they take on this almost exalted position as like the start of westward quote unquote progress.
And the Blackfeet attacked, and the head of the American Fur Company, William Vanderburg, he gets killed, but Bridger gets 2 arrows, and he talks about Bridger took 2 arrows.
Both had a fight with the Blackfeet. Mr. Vandenberg was killed a few days after we parted. In our fight, Bridger was shot in 2 places with arrows.
What I always thought was so cool about these letters is that they fold them up. You can see the folds here much better, but they get folded up and then they become the envelope.
I have been a few nights ago fired upon by Indians. 2 balls were shot through my leg?
Lodge,
Yeah.
through his lodge.
A lot of these letters are going back and forth with the rendezvous pack train or wagon caravan.
Not so much back and forth, just back to civilization. Yeah, a lot of times the guys that were riding home or whatever, like in these cases here, they're writing their letters and they're giving them to the guys that are heading back with the furs. And then once they get back to civilization, whether it's independence or whatever, where there is a postal service, then they get put into the postal service and get mailed.
This is genuine, like Jim Bridger's gun.
He owned this gun, he hung it on his wall, he shot it. His friend Louis Vasquez gave him this gun as a gift. Weighs 11 pounds.
Oh my God, man.
Isn't that crazy?
Look at the barrel on that thing.
Yeah, 40 caliber.
40 caliber.
40
But just like a bull barrel though.
Yeah. Yeah, look at how much metal is. But 40 caliber is not going to bring down a buffalo. So.
I'll give you $1,000.
I'm not the guy to talk to.
This was in his possession what year?
1853 is when it was given to him.
Meaning like a gun that might be tied to Bridger wasn't Bridger's gun when he was a mountain man, it was Bridger's gun later in life.
Later in life. For that reason, it existed because he wasn't using it in the same realm where it was survival every day. He was sitting in his fort.
Yeah.
Right.
Or he was sitting on horseback leading a wagon train where you may have a skirmish, but you didn't have a major battle type thing.
But presumably there's a hell of a lot of those laying in the bottom of the Yellowstone, the bottom of the Snake, the bottom of the Missouri.
Or in the cache. The guns, when they came out, this was a paradigm shift in technology for Indians. They were close range bow shooters. When they saw this, the way we could hold them at bay at 100 yards, 200 yards even, they wanted this technology. Well, we didn't want to give them a really nice, expensive gun, so we came out with the Northwest trade gun. This had a 42, 44-inch barrel, but the Indians didn't like length. What they liked is something that was a carbine. And so you could load this with round ball, you could load it with buckshot, you could load it with bird shot, you could load it with juniper berries. Whatever you want to shoot out of this thing, there's no rifling in here. Now, this particular gun here is also a mountain man gun, but not one that gets much notoriety because there weren't very many of them that existed. This is a double barrel flintlock, what was called the camp gun, because right here you have 2 shots, okay? You're going to be put out to guard the stock at night. And so you're watching the stock and you're freezing out there. You're holding this gun, but then you hear something. Somebody's trying to steal the stock. You can fire off 1 barrel, wake everybody else up in camp, and still have another barrel for protection. And feel the weight of that, Steve, there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that's got a little bit
This
of
when you read about guys putting a slug and also balls in on the same
buck and
thing.
ball.
Yeah,
buck and ball.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is we're going to load up these guns now and we're going to see how they fire.
Yeah.
You're on, buddy. There you go.
Now we gotta see if Randall can beat that.
Bad. When the pan hit, I pushed forward.
I
I felt myself moving before that gun went off.
Hey!
Just a little low.
Get her to doornail.
When you shoot that into a big game animal that hits a rib, it'll just mushroom
Pancake right out, right?
out. Pancake out. But the wounds in the Civil War, because they were still using round balls, were horrific. They would hit guys in the leg, blow guys' legs off. The sepsis that was caused by the power of these balls hitting people, the damage to the body compared to a high-powered rifle
Yeah.
was incredible. Not even in the ballpark.
Yeah.
But still dead. Tracking the wounded animal, kills them.
Well, here, I was coming at Randall. Here I am.
Yeah.
Randall's aiming at my
Yeah,
navel.
but when he went to shoot you, you turned sideways because you thought he was over there.
So this one actually hit me in the shoulder, which hurts.
Well, good shooting, guys.
That's great.
That's good.
A little
Great
history lesson
shooting.
for you.
Thank you. It's fun.
Yep.
1832, Joseph Meek is riding horses with a guy in the middle of winter and the guy freezes to death in his saddle.
Mountain man Jed Smith, trying to find water in Kansas, gets shot in the back, falls from his horse dead.
An Englishman traveling with Osborne Russell stops for a drink of water. They go back to find him a little while later, never seen again.
1827, Cache Valley. Some mountain men are digging a cache. The cache collapses in on one of the mountain men, and they leave him there dead and go dig a new cache.
Cambridge Green gets mad at another trapper for taking a spot that he'd claimed. His boss says, well, if you're so mad about it, why don't you just kill him? He does.
Guy named Hatchet Jack gets killed by a grizzly bear, writes a note on himself that says, my gun killed the bar that killed me.
That's not true. You're just talking about the movie Jeremiah Johnson. Again.
Your ma. You know what I'm dying to touch, but I know we're not allowed to touch it.
Yeah, yeah. That's an
Just dying
amazing,
to touch it.
that is an amazing artifact right there.
Dying to touch it. In our project, we talk about Osborne Russell and his description of Shoshone bows.
Right.
And he
And this is
mentions-
probably a Shoshone bow.
You know, he mentions bows made out of sheep horn. And he
Yeah.
mentions, what's funny is he talks about them being about a 36-inch
Yep.
bow.
Thir-
just
34.
so small. That was 34 inches.
Yep. And
And a guy found this in the mountains
yeah, up on the Grovant. Yeah.
in the 40s.
1940s.
Wow.
Around that time.
Man, most dudes would look and not know what they're looking at.
No.
Yeah.
No. And the thing is, this is actually a recurve bow. So when you string this bow, this isn't where the bow is. The bow is going to go that way. So it gives you extra strength in there.
Oh, I would have got that wrong.
Yeah, you wouldn't have been the first. This is the bone side.
Well, you know, I guess you see that because right there.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this bow, it went,
Yeah,
the belly came out like this when you
Right.
strung it.
right. So this is the horn side. You can see the horn back here, and this it's backed with sinew. which is basically a muscle tendon.
Yeah.
And that adds to the strength. But this bow goes back to earlier than 1740. They did some testing on it.
Yeah, because they would
1740
get a radiocarbon date
Right.
off that horn.
Right,
Yeah.
somewhere between 1690 and 1740.
So it's like a pre-contact bow.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the oldest, if not the oldest.
That is incredible.
Especially with an archaeological provenance, like finding it in a cave.
Yeah.
You know, and they took those big curved horns off those bighorn sheep and put them in a hot spring.
That was my question.
Yeah,
is
that's
like
the
how do you
steam in
get
the hot
how do you
springs,
get
yeah.
this
The
shape
hot
out
water,
of
the hot water will soften that so it's malleable.
It's unbelievable, man. It
Amazing.
was a cool find.
Yeah, it was a rancher that found it, and for it to have ended up here in Pinedale at the museum is really kind of a really nice story in itself.
Why is history interesting? Why does history matter? I used to engage with history like how you might engage with the owner's manual of a new battery trickle charger you bought. Meaning, I was interested in trapping, right? So I would read stuff to learn about it. So it's like, here's this trickle charger. I'd love to know how to operate it. My owner's manual on this lifestyle I wanted to live, my owner's manual was to go and read history books about old trappers because I would figure stuff out. Over time, though, it became like I fell in love with the owner's manual. I read it just to like understand the human experience. The richness of the resources encountered by the mountain men. The richness of the resources counted by the hide hunters. Always, you get into that material and you look and you're like, man, I would give anything to just see it for a minute. I would give anything to time travel and do a day or an hour and just see what that must have looked like.